Hi everyone, just bear with me, get the specs on and I will see who is all here. So, hi Caroline, hi Shona, hi Tracy. Now I am going to do my best saying hello to people as they come in.
Hello.
Hi. But as the call builds up, I'll probably miss people. So how are you, Caroline?
I'm fine, Avril. I'm good, yeah. I haven't managed to walk today though, so I might do one after the call. So, yeah, that's not good.
No, do you know, I just said I'm taking my specs off because I'm really mindful that there's glare when I have my specs on. I just said that to Alan. I said, gosh, I've not actually done any physical activity other than a little bit of housework. It's really weird. It's not saying people are coming in, which is great, but normally I admit people. It's a bit bizarre. Yeah, so I had just been saying that to Alan that I hadn't done any actual activity other than walking about the house, doing a bit of housework, running after kids, but I suppose that counts.
Well, I've not done that obviously, so I did have to go to the shops today, so that was my anxiousness. But I didn't get out today, so but I might go for a wee walk afterwards because I think the moon will still be quite at its peak because it was a full moon last night. So.
Yeah, it was beautiful last night, wasn't it, Caroline? Well,
Yeah, it was.
we set ourselves a challenge to see how long we could go without actually going to the shops. I think we are. This shows you how much food we must have had in the house, and I wasn't intentionally, buying extra or anything like that. But I think we're maybe on day 5 or 6. We get our milk delivered,
Yep.
so milk and fresh orange juice and stuff delivered. So I'm planning a shopping trip tomorrow.
I had got to day 8 and there was nothing in the fridge. And I thought, I'm really going to struggle tonight. I had a few beans, that was about it, some coconut milk. And I thought, yeah, I think it's time to venture out.
Thank goodness for beans.
It's just as well I live on my own, say no more.
I have a house full, so I'm really impressed at how well I've done. Yeah, we used to call my eldest daughter the bean queen when she was young because that's all she would eat was beans on toast. I couldn't get her to eat anything else, so I gave up trying. And now she has got the best palate going. I think it's incredible what she eats now. So sometimes it's worth just surrendering, isn't it?
Yeah,
Interesting. Maybe that's a nice segue into this call. So
it might well be.
what was that, Caroline?
It might well be.
It might well be. So guys, I'm just checking my phone because I've got some messages just in case it's some people saying they can't get into the call. That doesn't seem to be. Cool. Okay, so welcome everybody. We're just a little bit after 8, so I'm going to give it a few minutes to wait and see if there's any more people coming in before we kick things off. Do you know, I am absolutely loving showing up inside these calls, whether it's me sharing or me being the hostess with the mostess. I'm really enjoying showing up in these calls, and it's amazing to see so many of you coming in, and that's really lovely too. I know there's a lot of people who come in that know me already, but there's also a lot of you coming in who've never met me before. You've maybe come across the Well-being Cafe and you've never met any of the coaches before. So it's really lovely to see you coming in here. And I also know that there's people who are watching the calls on the inside the resource hub on demand, which is fabulous. It really is fabulous. So it's so good to be here tonight. I like doing the calls in the evening. I think for me, and I can only speak for me, that for me the pace feels a bit slower which is the pace that I always like, is to be slow. I don't know why. Maybe the mornings, there's always a lot to be done in the mornings, getting kids organized and all that stuff. So come the evening, dinner's had, the kids are settled, and it just always feels like a nicer, slower space and pace. And that, I think that's really nice for this evening, given the topic that we're going to be talking about, or that I'm going to be sharing with you. And something occurred to me today that I thought might be helpful for me to share with you about me and the kind of coaching that I do, because my coaching and the coaching that I teach also isn't traditional style coaching. Generally traditional coaching works on the horizontal. So someone has an issue or a problem, they go to a coach, and the coach helps them get from A to B and solve this, and they help the person solve that problem, or experience a better outcome, or change their mindset, or whatever it might be. And that's how traditional coaching works. So quite a lot of coaches out there working that way, and a lot of life coaches, that's how they work. And and it's a brilliant way to work, no doubt about that, because if you have a specific problem, when you work on the horizontal with someone, you're usually able to give them a set of tools, a set of techniques, recommend books, and all of that kind of stuff. And that's how I started out as a coach. So it absolutely is a wonderful way of coaching. But as I deepened into my role as a coach, I had a shift in my own perspective, my own awareness, and realised that for real change, real lasting change, for people to experience that, the coaching has to happen on the vertical. And what I mean by that is, a coach that really empowers someone and helps someone experience change that impacts their entire life, it happens on the vertical, in the sense that you help someone have a shift in awareness. So if you've been coming on these calls and thinking, why are these guys not giving me techniques or processes to follow? Why are they sharing things from their own experiences? The reason for that is because we're not traditional coaches, and we don't follow the traditional form that coaching would take, i.e. moving someone from A to B on a horizontal plane. What we aim to do in the best way that we can, and with as much awareness that we have, because that's all we can do is share from the place that we are currently at, is to help you, or help people shift on the vertical. So help people to essentially see something that they didn't see before. Because when we see something that we didn't see before, and we have an insight, as I like to call it, and we have an insight, that's where real long sustainable change happens. And I've been a coach for a very long time, well over 20 years. I've only had my own private practice for the last 12 years, but I've been coaching for well over 20 years. And where I see coaching being really effective with my clients is when I've helped them see something that they hadn't seen before. And that generally does not involve a technique or a 10-step process or whatever. So the reason I'm sharing that with you tonight is, well, one, I thought it'd be useful for you to have that understanding about the type of coaching that we do, but also because what we're going to be talking about tonight is fear. And I really wanted to be clear that I am not going to be telling you what to do with your fears. And I am certainly, I do have techniques, you know, I do have techniques that I could share with you that you could use, and for a short while you would experience, you know, a bit relief from that fear. But I'm not going to do that tonight. What I want to do tonight is just share my understanding of what I've seen and what I've learned over the years about where fear comes from, and maybe share some things with you. And there's only so much I can do in a short space of time. Share some things with you that might help you shift your awareness of what's going on in moments in your life when you're experiencing fear. So that's my intention tonight, and I don't know why, it just felt right to explain the kind of coaches you're speaking to here in the group. And as I say, you know, maybe some of you have wondered, oh, why aren't they giving us all lots of techniques and stuff like that? It's because generally we're coming from the inside out. We're doing our best to share things in a way that will help you look in a different direction, I guess. You know, because often when we look in a different direction, we see something new. And yeah, and it is in that new thing that we see where change happens. You know, I say to all my clients and all my students, once you see something, you can never unsee it. And that's where real change happens. So I think it probably sounds like we're settled at where we are tonight. So I'm just going to check. And then I'm just going to tell you a little bit how we're going to, I'm taking these off because of the glare, how we're going to work. I'm wondering if everybody is here, because I know that I had some emails from other people. Well, they can catch up on the demand if they can't get on tonight. So how it's going to work tonight, for those of you who know me, you know I like to ramble on a little bit. So I'm just going to ramble on and talk about fear, and share whatever comes up for me in relation to my experience, whatever pops into my head, because I've got loads of experiences around fear and times when I've experienced fear. And then I'm just going to open up the call, and if anybody has any questions, then you can just ask me whatever you want. Now, I'm only able to kind of dip my toe in here with you because it's only a short call, but I'm really going to do the best that I can. And I'm going to give you a real treat tonight, because for those of you who don't know me very well, you will not know that I have a secret skill. And my secret skill is being a very bad artiste. So I'm going to give you the pleasure of letting you see some of my creative work tonight. So let me just check everybody's in. Yes. So let me just talk a little bit about fear and where I see fear coming from. To me, fear is, it's something that we experience on the inside. It's to me, fear is never something that happens on the outside. It's something that we experience on the inside our own mind, and we then project that out into the world. So it'd be kind of like, I have a lot of clients who'll come to me and they'll say, I have this big fear of giving presentations. So what happens is, normally that thing that they're fearful of hasn't happened yet. The presentation, for example, you know, they'll come to me and say, I've got a big presentation next week and I'm absolutely terrified of doing that presentation. But the thing is, they haven't even had that experience yet. You know, they haven't even stepped up to do the presentation. So what I see is that it's not the presentation that that person might be frightened of or is frightened of. It's the projection of that presentation. It's the experience, or let's say the thinking of that presentation, that's given rise to this feeling of fear that comes from inside ourselves. You know, fear doesn't necessarily happen on the outside. And yeah, to an extent, there'll be real instances of fear when our life is threatened in the moment, and that is real fear. That's not just something that we're experiencing inside ourselves. You know, if we're in a position where we're being physically threatened in some way, then that's a totally different thing. But most other things that we're fearful of are usually things that have never happened, or they've maybe happened in the past. There might be one-off events that are unlikely to occur again, but we've built up such a strong internal re-representation of them that we hold on to all the thoughts and all the feelings attached to that experience, that we then begin to look ahead into the future and project it out into the world. And another really simple example of that could be something like, this is a true story. When I was about 17, 18, I was crossing a road in Edinburgh called Shamrock Place. I don't know how familiar everybody is with Shamrock Place in Edinburgh. So it's a really busy road. And, you know, I was just kind of in my little la la world in my head, and kind of happily I had been working, came out of the office, and right onto the road, stepped off the curb, and bang, I got hit by a bus. And I was in complete shock. Fortunately, I was okay. Nothing happened to me. I was worried about other things, like getting taken away in an ambulance and were my knickers clean or whatever. I was more worried about that at the time. In fact, I might share the actual things I was worried about. But anyway, so that happened, and I was fine. But what happened afterwards was that I really built up a big fear about crossing that road. Now, what are the chances of that ever happening to me again? The chances are pretty slim, because I've had that experience, and if I'm wise enough and aware enough, I'll know next time not to just skip out the office and cross the road, even though there's a whole load of buses coming. You know, I'll be mindful and I'll stop and I'll hit the pedestrian crossing button and I'll cross at the pedestrian crossing. But for years and years later, every time I came to that street, this fear came up, this fear of, oh my gosh, what if I cross that road and get hit by a bus again, which was absolutely unlikely. But what I realised, and it took me a long time to realise this, was that all that was happening each time I experienced that was that I was in that moment when I was thinking about that particular thing, which was unlikely to happen again, I was living in the feelings of my thinking. I was living in the experience of that moment, which was in the past. And that experience that I was living in, or the thinking that I was living in, was bringing up these feelings of fear. In fact, it was doing even more, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because I've not got the time, but it was bringing up even more than that. It was kicking in my whole fight or flight response and taking me into this neuromuscular lockdown when we go into fight or flight. So it was taking me right into that place. So I was going into this fight or flight place. And at that moment when that was happening to me, you know, I knew it's just my thinking, and I knew there was nothing to be scared of. But I got completely caught up in the experience, so much so that I then became fearful of crossing the road. But the reality is I never had anything to be fearful of, because it was unlikely that that was ever going to happen again. And that's the thing with fear. You know, most of the fears that we have, they're really just thoughts hanging about in our head that we're kind of sometimes I use the term, we kind of jump on them and start riding them as if we're riding, jumping on a train to go to London. We just jump on that train without any thought, and before we know it, we've stopped at a whole load of other destinations. And what happens is when those thoughts come along and we keep adding meaning to it, and we keep adding, I don't want to use the word helpful or unhelpful, but if we just keep adding more and more stuff to that thinking, then in that moment, the feelings that we start to experience expand. And that's what happens with fear. For me, I don't think fear is anything that ever really needs to worry any of us, when we understand that fear is just something that we're experiencing on the inside. It's not something that's happening on the outside to us, except in those exceptional circumstances. And when we can start to see that, when we can start to be aware that when I have a thought about something I'm fearful of, and I can see that thought has arrived, and if we can start to develop an awareness of that thought coming in, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it, it's just about slowing down in the moment. I'm going to draw you a little picture which might help you. But when we can start to become aware in the moment of that fearful thought arriving, you can't change it, because contrary to what a lot of people tell us, we cannot change our thinking, we can't change our thoughts, but what we can do is we can choose to look somewhere else, or we could choose to take our awareness in a different direction. So if I think about going over to Edinburgh, and maybe there's a shop on Shamrock Place that I want to go to, and then immediately, and it always happens to me, immediately I think of Shamrock Place, I think about being run over by a bus. But instead of me riding that bus, jumping on that bus, and getting caught up in all the thinking that went around that time that I got run over by the bus, I just allow myself just to notice that, oh, that's interesting, I've thought that again. And I allow myself to maybe look in another direction, so as I don't get caught up in all the feelings that thinking could potentially create within myself. It's kind of one of the things that I've come to see, and I've had a lot of amazing teachers, is that, in fact, I was on a call earlier tonight with one of my mentors, and I have to be honest, I wasn't paying as much attention to him as I normally would, because I was busy doing other things. But something did catch my attention, and I've heard him say this several times before in the time that he's taught me. One of the things he said, and I'm not sure if these are his exact words, but words to these effect: to the degree you can accept your experience, the experience that you're having in the moment, the quicker that experience will move through you and dissolve away. And I guess, when he said that, my ears pricked up, because I thought, yeah, that's fear. To the degree that I can accept, I'm having this experience, and this experience is internal to me. It's not something happening outside of me. It's an experience that I'm creating for myself, and that experience creates my feelings, because all thinking leads to, or all thought leads to, a feeling. So as quick as I can accept that I'm having that experience in the moment, and just accept it and take my awareness somewhere else, then that experience will begin to dissolve away and disappear. And it might not disappear completely, clearly not, because I'm speaking about, something that happened to me, I don't know, gosh, I've lost track, well over 30 years ago. So the experience is still there in my awareness, but I know not to live in that experience. I can accept that I'm having that experience in the moment, and I can choose to look somewhere else and have a new experience. And I tell a little story on with my Reinventing You students, that again, it's just another nice way to see this, I think. You know, if you go to, I might have shared this actually on one of the calls in here, so I apologise if I have, but you're getting to hear it again because it's helpful. It's always helpful. So if I go to a cash machine and I attempt to take out some cash, and I get there and I pop my card in, put in my PIN number, and then request whatever amount of money I want to take out, and the cash machine flashes up and says insufficient funds, immediately my mind is going to go into panic. Oh my goodness, what's happened? Why have I no money in my account? Has someone got into my account? Has someone, done some fraudulent activity on my account? Has my husband cleared the account out? Has he been spending too much money on rugby gear or whatever it might be? So my mind starts to race. I don't know if any of that has happened, but this is what I'm making up in my own mind. This is the experience that I'm creating for myself in that moment. So I kind of take the card back out, and all the while I'm trying to figure out, why has this happened? And, oh, we've got our mortgage coming off and I need to get food for the kids. And, it's Ada's birthday next week. What am I going to do if I have no money? And all these worries over and over and over again. And I might even pick up the phone and phone my husband and have a go at him for spending too much money or whatever it might be. But then I get home and I sit on the sofa and I'm still thinking about all these things, and I pick up the remote control or I pick up my phone and I switch on something on the TV, and I don't know, it's maybe Gavin. I like Gavin and Stacey. I don't know if anybody else does, but I like a bit Gavin and Stacey. And I sit down and I watch Gavin and Stacey, and I find myself laughing and I'm chuckling. And then maybe my phone does ping and I pick my phone up and it's my best friend, and she's sent me a little funny video to watch and I'm chuckling at that. And all the while this is happening, I'm chuckling, I'm laughing, but all the while that is happening, that experience that I'm having of laughing and whatever, sitting on the sofa, relaxed, watching the TV, and maybe even smiling at my husband by this time, I still have no money in my bank account. I still, if I go to if I get up off the sofa and go round a corner to the shop and go to the cash line and put my card in and ask for money, it's still going to say insufficient funds. And how is that possible? How can I 1 minute be there with that experience and then the other minute be here with this experience? And that, for me anyway, tells me that from moment to moment, all we are ever doing is living in the feelings of our thinking, or living in the experience that we're creating in our mind in that moment. None of that is outside of me. None of it. It's all here, in here. And to me, that's where fear comes from. The majority of our fears all start on the inside, that we then project outside into the outside world. And then we take on and add to those fears. Maybe we'll find ourselves in situations where we can add a bit of evidence here to prove that I have that fear. And to go back to my clients who are maybe fearful of giving presentations, they might say to me, oh, but the last time I did a presentation, this is what happened. And that all goes to add to that experience of being fearful. And I think for me, what I've experienced over the last, 3 weeks now. Gosh, it's hard to believe, because the days that sometimes feel like they're going really quick, and then other times it feels really slowly. But what I've experienced over these last few weeks and become incredibly aware of is just how much time that I live in my head and live in the experience of my thinking. And I think for me, this whole kind of slowing down because of the coronavirus, because that's what it has done for me. You know, I haven't got all the routines that I normally have, getting kids to school and, you know, all the usual structures or whatever I have in place. So I've really been forced to slow down. And as I've slowed down, I've seen more and more clearly how much I live in the experience of my thinking, and how much that experience can go up and down all the time, you know, moment to moment. And it is quite literally a moment to moment thing. You know, one moment I can be here, you know, sitting with you guys, having a really nice experience, looking at all you gorgeous people on the call and feeling really good. And then the next moment I could be off this call and up the stairs, and, you know, someone says something or the TV's too loud, and I can go all the way back down there. But that's got nothing to do with what's happening outside of me. That's everything to do with how I'm experiencing things on the inside, my perception and the reality that I create on the inside of me. And that to me is how I see fear is. That's my experience of fear. And I think when fear really starts to take a hold is when we get caught up in this idea that if we are unable to control what's on the outside of us, then we will end up in some kind of bother or some kind of trouble or whatever it might be, or we'll end up in a difficult situation. And what tends to happen is when we get caught up in a cycle of fear or worry or even anxiety, because it all comes down to the same thing, we tend to kind of swing from the past into the future, and we tend to go really fast. I'm going to get my drawing for you. I'm laughing. I should have drawn this beforehand. I hope you can see it. Can you see that? So we tend to swing from the past all the way over to the future, jumping backwards and forwards, in and out of experiences that we've either had or we imagine we're going to have, instead of slowing down and being here in the moment and being really present with what's showing up in the moment. And going back to the cash line thing that I was talking about, when I put my cash line card into that machine and it says no funds, you know, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, what starts immediately to happen is our experience starts to swing back and forward from the past to the future, depending on the conscious experiences that we've had in our lives. So for me, for example, if I put my card in that cash machine and there's no cash in there, then, and I go into a panic and I become fearful because I've got no money, unconsciously or consciously, my mind's going to flip back to the past, to a time when, you know, I was poor and I didn't have much, and how I don't want to be like that again. And then it's going to flip into the future. How the heck am I going to pay the mortgage, the bills? And instead of just showing up to the moment and observing that right now I'm just living in the experience of my thinking, or living in the feelings of my thinking in the moment. And if I slow down, what will happen is some clarity will come through, and I'll be able to see the next step that I need to take. Does that make sense? And that's what I do. You know, when I get caught up in fear, because I do get caught up in fear, you know, because that's part of the human experience. We, you know, you don't not have ups and downs and bumps in the road, irrespective of who you are or what you know. Everybody has these experiences, and it's perfectly normal. How we navigate them, I guess, whether we navigate them to a greater or lesser degree of success, I guess, if you want to use that word, really depends very much, in my experience, on how much aware we are of how we work on the inside. So whether we're more inclined to look inwards for solutions or look outside of ourselves. And generally, I find that if you're looking outside of yourself for solutions to problems or fixing things, then the chances are it takes you a lot longer to move through some of the experiences we experience. And that's why I think we're seeing people during this time all experiencing this so differently. You know, well, we all experience things in our own way. We all perceive the world completely different to each other anyway. But to the degree of how aware we are around how we operate as human beings, to me, that determines how fast we move in and out of these experiences. So if my understanding and my awareness is that, you know, it's because of everything out there that's created this, then the chances are I'm going to stay in those unhelpful experiences much longer than I would if my understanding comes from the inside, and I understand that even though I have no money in the bank, I can still be okay in the moment. I don't have to live in that experience, and a solution or whatever will come along. So I don't know if that's helpful or makes any sense. And I'm happy for you to pick my brains on that. If anybody wants to put my glasses on, ask me anything. Everybody's gone really quiet.
I was going to ask just about the physical response, Avril, to fear as well, and just, I suppose my understanding of it has changed over the years when I experienced a lot of anxiety, and the more physical experience I had of it, the more I believed it was true as well. Mm-hmm. And I suppose just that awareness now that if I have a racing heart or I feel that the fear must be real because of what I'm feeling inside, mm-hmm. But maybe now seeing it as it's just a little guidance system that I'm getting pulled off track, you know, as our brains don't know the difference between that real fear in the moment, like the stepping out in front of the bus, or the, because it took me a long time to figure that out, because I kept getting caught up in anxiety and thinking, but it must be real because I can feel all those physical experiences so much. So
yeah, and you're right, Lynn, that's where our brains are so incredibly powerful, that our brain literally does not know what the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And that's why people say visualization is so powerful, because our brains don't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It will literally believe anything that it sees or hears or tastes or smells. It will literally believe it, and the brain will think it is a real experience, when in reality it isn't. So therefore, if you're in a threatening situation, or you are imagining a threatening situation, your body will start to go into fight or flight response and do whatever it does, or whatever it sees to be right for you, for it to do for you in the moment, you know, and respond for you in the moment. And that might be a racing heart or a feeling of kind of panic coming through the body. But I'm glad you reminded me of that, Lynn, because that's one of my most favourite things. That, you know, I spent a year in a thing called a healer's clinic with 2 doctors who teach this type of work. And, you know, Bill, who's still my mentor, sorry, I've got a hair in my eye, it's annoying me. Bill, my mentor, he uses the phrase that, you know, things like fear or, you know, fearful thoughts, you know, a nice way to look at them is you see them as being little love letters from your inner wisdom, you know. And when I talk about inner wisdom, I talk about that, to me, that's, and I'm sure this will resonate with you, but there, you know, that little voice inside you that you don't listen to as often as maybe would be beneficial, let's say. You know, some people might call it their intuition, other people might call it, I don't know, source, universe, whatever you want to call it. But it's to me, it's my own inner wisdom that's always there, always nudging me. You know, wisdom is always there guiding me inside. And, you know, Bill always says, you know, when you're caught up in these, you know, this fearful thinking and these experiences, you know, that are not helpful for you, you know, and the feelings that aren't helpful for our bodies, you know, instead of seeing them as something that's bad, you know, stepping back and slowing down and seeing them. I don't know if he uses these words, but anyway, stepping back, that's the words that I use, stepping back and just seeing them as little love letters from your inner wisdom saying to you, you know, something's not right, you know, maybe it'd be worth looking in a different direction so as you're not getting caught up in all that unhelpful experience in the moment. And that's one of the things that, you know, I'll find myself doing, is that when I'm getting caught up in unhelpful experiences that I know I'm creating for myself. You know, in the past, I used to kind of really beat up on myself. Like, oh, I'm a really bad person having thoughts like this, and I really must change my thinking. I don't even bother changing my thinking anymore, because you know, I can't even remember how many 50 odd thousand thoughts goes through our minds at any given time, and it's a ridiculous amount of thoughts. You cannot change you can't change your thinking, and you can't stop the thoughts from coming. So if you're faced with a tsunami of fearful thinking, you know, there's nothing that you can do to stop those thoughts coming. They're going to keep coming. And, you know, the best thing that, in my experience, the best thing to do is just to take your awareness somewhere else and just step back and slow down. And it's back to that, the minute you accept, the minute you go into a place of acceptance, okay, this is what I'm experiencing right now. And I'm aware that I'm experiencing right now. And I think I put this up in a little post in the group earlier in the week around anxiety. For me, it's just, what I do is I just say, right, well, what's the next best thing I can do for myself right now? Or what does it occur to me to do right now in this moment? And then I go do that thing. And to me, that's a much more helpful and kinder way of helping us move through fear, because fear isn't something to be frightened of. It's just an experience, you know. And if we can see that all fear is an experience that we're creating on the inside of our mind, it's not real. I think there's, what is it people say? Fear, false evidence, appearing real. And then there's another one, what's it?
Face your fears and do it anyway.
There's, yeah, Susan Jeffers. There's another little anagram. It's face everything and run, you know, or something like that. To me, it's, yeah, all those things, they're all great, you know, kind of techniques and stuff. But if I can just sit in a place of acceptance and trust in that, and you'll have to excuse the language, but I'm going to use a little sweetie word. If I don't stir my own shit pot, then the waters aren't going to get cloudy and full of even more shit. But if I apologise, I hope I've not offended anybody. But if I just leave the pot alone, take out the spoon, put it down, everything will settle and clarity will come. I don't need to meddle with my fears, but I can accept that it's an experience that I'm having in the moment, and that's okay. And I can just allow that experience to be there and just accept it. And that's what Bill was saying today, you know, that the faster we can accept that experience, the quicker it will be transformed. He didn't say those words. That's my interpretation of it. And that's exactly how I see it. The faster I can accept this experience I'm having now, the faster it will transform and something new will come through for me to see. And that's the thing, you know, that's the thing with our thinking. If we leave our thoughts alone just to run their course, eventually something new will show up. And again, going back to my example about going to the cash line to take out money, you know, by the time I'm getting home and I'm sitting in front of the TV and, you know, my friend's texting me and I'm watching Gavin and Stacey, this is something new coming through. I haven't had to do anything about that. It doesn't mean that the problem's gone away, i.e. I've no money in my account. But what it does mean is that I'm not living in the experience of all the stressful, fearful thinking that I was in the moment I went to the cash machine. And it's in that place, no matter what we experience on the outside, if we can sit in that place for long enough, no matter what is going on outside of us, whether it's coronavirus or anything else, and I have experienced a lot in my life, so I'm not, you know, please don't for a minute think I'm sitting here and I've had a nice candy floss life and all of that, because I haven't. I've experienced a lot in my life. So for me, this is a truth. It speaks to me in a way that nothing else ever did. So irrespective of what's happening out there, if we're able to move into this space, then none of that will have the impact on us in the way that it would have done before. Because everything happens from the inside out. And, you know, and this is what I teach. But mostly we've got it all round the wrong way, because we think, because of the coronavirus, I am. You know, and yeah, the coronavirus, for example, is real, but how we experience it is up to us. You know, we can choose to allow ourselves live in the experience of the fears that we might be jumping into the future about, you know, and I have a lot of them, and I do dip in and out of it, I'm not going to lie. Or we can choose, can't change our thoughts, but we can choose a different direction to look in. So what does it occur to me to do just now? The moment I begin to see that out there, the moment I become aware that I'm out in the future or in the past, I can choose to step back and just be the observer and see that I'm swinging like Tarzan on a pendulum, and then choose to look in a different direction, whatever that direction might be. For me, sometimes it's Well, I'll be honest, the minute I get caught up in that type of thinking and creating those types of internal experiences for myself, I just go nap. I just sleep it off, because that's what works for me. Because my mind is so busy. It's the only thing that will quieten it down for a minute. It's the only thing that allows me to take that spoon out the shit pot, so I'm not stirring it all day long. You know, and you know, it might be read a book or have a bath or clean the house, or there's no prescriptive thing that I do. It's just whatever occurs to me in the moment. And what was interesting during the first week of the coronavirus for me with all of this was that I just had this, my wisdom saying, go do your daily practices, Avril. You know, just sit in the morning, set an intention for the day and see what comes through. You know, and then it was pick up your journal, start writing again. You know, and because my mind was going mental. You know, I was thinking, oh, what about my business and how am I going to survive with everybody in the house? Oh, there was just so much thinking and so many things I was fearful and worried about for the future. And these were all the things that were starting to come through. And it was just really interesting. So for me, I do not experience fear as something outside of me anymore. At all. I don't see fear as something out there that's going to happen to me. I see fear as something that I am creating on the inside of me that will result in an experience and a feeling that I'll begin to lean into in the moment. And anytime I notice it, I can step back and I can look somewhere else and lean into that instead. And I think that's just a really kind and gentle way, especially if you're someone who has a lot of anxiety or your fears are wrapped around a lot of your anxieties. I just think that's a nicer and kinder way and more loving thing to do, rather than thinking, I need to fix all these fears and go get deeper and deeper into that pot and stirring it faster and faster. Lynn, I bet you wished you hadn't asked me that question now.
Not at all, thank you.
Lynn is my sidekick when I'm doing my Reinventing You course. So Lynn's trained with me a long time. So yeah, that's why we're a good Batman and Robin. Does anybody please ask me anything, you know, or share anything that's come to you? I'd love to hear it. I could talk about this stuff forever.
Another little saying I like, Avril, is there's nothing to fear but fear itself, which I think just clicked with me a few years ago, because I spent my whole life worrying and being fearful of lots of things, and felt as though I had to always think of the worst. When you were saying that you can't change your thoughts, I couldn't change my direction. You know, I was consumed by the thoughts, and it's only in the past few years that I've actually been able to get over that. And what I must say to you tonight is a thank you, because I came to your tape session, and there's the wee drawing that you do about the thoughts coming into your head, what you do with them. You know, and I've had bad health since January, and just that little drawing that you did to do with your thoughts, which obviously I know you're talking about fear tonight, obviously that is still all to do with you. That has made such a difference to my thinking the past few months, and it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because it's proved to me that I don't have to think of the worst. I can just think of something else, go out with my friends, get it out of my head, and it's amazing how it works. It's taken me so long to realise.
Oh, do you know what, Elaine? That is just wonderful to hear that especially at this time for you, and there's wisdom in action. You came to that taster day, and I know you wanted to come and train with me, but then things changed. But wisdom brought you there, and pointed you in that direction, so that you could see what you now see. That's been so helpful. So I just think that is lovely.
No, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm fine, and I will be fine, but obviously at some point I didn't know how well I was going to be or not. But all my friends just can't believe, because they know me, they've known me for years, and they're like, I can't believe how you're dealing with this. And I keep saying, well, do you remember I went to the hypnosis session in Edinburgh? And I go through the whole story with them. Honestly, it's made such a difference.
Yeah. And we didn't even do any hypnosis. How interesting. and Elaine, I don't know if you were on the call at the very start, but what you've just described is a really good example of the difference between the type of coaching that I do and the type of coaching traditional coaches do. I helped you shift on the vertical, shift your awareness up, rather than point you from A to B, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
What you experienced on that taster day was a deepening of your understanding.
Yeah, definitely. It just made I felt as though I was meant to be there that day. It was just, and that's not the kind of, I've not experienced things like that before,
Yeah. Well,
so, and I'm not looking for, just because obviously I know there's a few people on. Basically, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the beginning of the year, and I've had a little operation, and I'm now having radiotherapy, and I'm going to be absolutely fine. So I'm not looking for any sort of sympathetic messages or anything like that. But it's just, obviously, it's a bit awkward when you're talking on like this, and Avril, is a wee bit familiar with what's been happening with me. So I thought I'd be best to share it with you. It might all sound a bit daft,
That's lovely. Thank you, Caroline. Oh, it seems. Oh, Caroline. That's only because Caroline popped the message up. Thank you. Caroline's saying you've got some feedback, Elaine. That's what it is. That's
all right.
Elaine, thank you. And thank you for sharing that and sharing your personal stuff as well. It's really good of you to do that, because it might touch someone else and help someone else too. So
yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm just going to check, because sometimes if I've got too many people unmuted, that's where the it sounds like I'm having the feedback. No? Does anybody else want to share anything? Everybody's gone quiet now.
Can you hear me okay, Avril?
I can, Louise. Hello.
Hi. So I guess I was thinking about when you were talking about the bank card, about something that probably happens to quite a lot of us when we lose our car keys or our house keys, and we're in a real panic over finding them. Mm-hmm. And we're in a fear of can't get into the car, can't lock the door, and I think my experience of that in the past has been, I then start being quite critical of myself, I can't even put a set of keys anywhere good, or I can't do this, and you've got a memory like a sieve, and you can become quite critical of your own self and of what's just not nice to yourself. So I guess it's about, when we come out of that irrational thinking and we gain that clarity, I guess it's about reminding ourselves of what we can do, and also about not being so hard on ourselves, because I think we can be so terribly, terribly hard on ourselves when we're feeling these feelings and we're thinking these thoughts and we're being really critical of ourselves. That's not till later on that you actually reflect and think, I was really hard on myself. That's not the case.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just to be kind to yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, Louise, you've just reminded me of something someone said to me a while back, a long time ago. I feel like I'm the one that's got the feedback. I don't. Am I echoing here? Yeah. I have no other devices on. I don't know why that is.
Oh,
I'm just going to mute everybody. How's that? Really weird. Anyway, hopefully you can still hear me without too much feedback. But Louise, you've reminded me of something that was shared with me a number of years ago. I think it was when I was maybe doing some coaching with Michael Neal, and you know, we all believe everything that we think, like literally believe that every thought that we have about whatever we're thinking is real. And because we believe it's real, we take every single thought seriously, like literally. So if I think, let's just say I have a horrible thought about my husband, which I have regularly, and I also have a million thoughts about my husband, which are loving and kind, and you know, but every time I have that horrible thought about my husband, I take it seriously. And I think I'm a bad person for having that thought. But what we forget is the thought's just a thought. It's meaningless. You know, a thought is nothing. It's completely formless until we make it into something. So if I have a bad thought about somebody, it says nothing about me. If I have a bad thought about, or a negative thought about something, about anything, it says nothing about me, because it's just a thought in the moment that has no form. You know, it's not until I take that thought, and let's just say, this is a bit extreme, and I am not going to do this, guys, but let's just say the thought is, I hate my husband, I'm going to kill him, and I literally go and kill him. Now, that's different. Then I'm taking it seriously. But every other thought is just made up. Some of it's made up good stuff, and some of it's made up crap, but none of it's real. And that's the thing. You know, that's the very thing. If we can grasp that, and I wish I could grasp it more than I do, but if we could just see that we are just living in stuff that we make up moment to moment, and stop taking it all so seriously, and stop being frightened of it, then we would all be in we'd all just come from a much happier, kinder and loving space for ourselves. So yeah, totally agree, Louise. Thank you for that. That was a lovely reminder of that. Anybody else? Just unmute yourself if you want to speak. Anybody else want to share anything? I love when you guys share with me.
I think Lynn is waving at us.
Lynn.
Is that right, Lynn? Lynn's iPad.
Lynn's iPad. Oh, it's gone now.
You see me there? Yeah, it's just to
Hi,
say
Lynn.
thank you very much. It was just to say thank you very much. I'm actually going to have to leave the meeting now. All right.
Okay, Lynn. Okay, no
But thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Anybody else before we wrap up for the evening? Has this been helpful for people? Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, hello, Tracy. Hello.
Oh, brave the camera.
Oh, my goodness. How are you?
Oh, well, you see it all, as they say.
So nice to see you.
You too. Do you know what? I've been wanting to come on your Well-being Cafes since the beginning, and I've just been so busy at work doing similar work at work all day, every day, on the phone. And tonight I sat down, and like you were saying, I just took a nap, and I woke up and it occurred to me to pop onto Avril's Cafe, and I'm so glad I did. Just letting it wash over me is a good reminder about self-care as well. And you know, you can support people, but we've got your own stuff as well, and it's good to come on to things like this and just have a wee reminder and let it all reboot. So thank you, basically, is what I was going to say, and nice to see everybody. And I will come back. I am listening to Kujabis when I get a minute, but
oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's been a great reminder.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm glad. And do you know, it is good to stay in these conversations with people, because it's easy for us to wander elsewhere. So I'm so glad you came in tonight, Tracy. It's so lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, anybody else? Nope, everyone quiet. Okay then. Well, since you're all quiet on me tonight, I'm just going to toddle off with my cup of tea, and I'm not going to do a lot of thinking around it, because I'm just showing up in the moment, my thoughts and my feelings, and I'm going to be in a nice place. Just kidding. If anybody has any questions afterwards, because sometimes as this stuff percolates, it throws up things, and I'm not meaning it, you just start to see things in a different way, and you go, it's like, you know, it's like joining the dots on things. Sid Banks, who, and I'd highly recommend people to read his books if you've never come across the man. His name's Sid Banks. I adore the man. He's sadly no longer here on this planet, but he's still around. His energy, clearly. He's written some lovely books, and I'd highly recommend people read them. But yeah, as things percolate, you know, sometimes we do start to see things we haven't seen before, and that's amazing. So just let it percolate. Don't let your thinking take over too much. And I have a call. I'm doing another call. Crikey, they're making me work, these coaches. I'm doing another call on Friday morning, and I am going to just open the call up for a Q&A for anybody who has maybe watched the replay or who's been on the call tonight and they have any questions that they want to ask me about this. And I'm also going to just share my daily practice and do a little bit of what I call generative trance meditation. So setting an intention for the weekend and just opening up. So you're all welcome to come in and say hiya and join me in that. That would be lovely. Okay, so Heather's just saying
thank you, Avril.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just a wee message from Heather. Oh, excellent. So thank you, Caroline, for that, and thanks everybody, and thanks to my little Robin there in the corner for giving me a wee nudge. You're forgetting things, Avril. It's my age.
I wasn't trying to say you're forgetting.
You can
just pop into my mind.
You can just say it. You're so forgetful, Avril. Anyway, thank you, everyone. It's been lovely to see you all tonight, and I look forward to sharing a little more of Avril's ramblings and insights in the future. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you, Avril. Bye.
Bye.